Hello everybody, I hope you're all well. Welcome back to another Torchwood Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review, I'm going to be taking a look at the May 2024 release of the monthly range, which is of course the concluding episode to 2024's Ianto-olgy. As written by Gareth David Lloyd himself, of course Ianto-Jones, we conclude this trilogy with Disco, a rather heartfelt but intense character piece digging into Ianto's past. This release is available to order now on the Big Finish website on both physical CD and digital download, and due to being Torchwood, of course, it does contain adult material, making it not suitable for younger listeners. So this trilogy has been quite the emotional journey, 3 excellent stories which do very different things, and if you are a fan of Ianto-Jones, then it goes without saying, this trilogy is exactly for you. But also, May has been an excellent month for Ianto fans, because we also had the release of the 5th volume of Torchwood 1, which is the perfect complementary box set to this release as well, which I will also be reviewing at some point in the future, and it's got Tommy in again, so what's not to like? Stories can be incredibly powerful things, especially I think within the audio drama format. Lacking visual creates little distraction, and the audience's sole focus is on the story's events and its characters. There is no way for a less exciting story to hide behind simply looking pretty, which I think this really tests the writers to be imaginative, but also dig deep into the characters and tell a story which the listener will be on board for throughout. Gareth David Lloyd concludes the Ianto-olgy with Disco, a powerful ending to cap off this trilogy, but also fitting so satisfyingly well into the Torchwood 1 Volume 5 box set I Hate Mondays, with Disco basically being episode 2.5 of that box set. I've had the pleasure of experiencing both releases this month, and if you can, I highly recommend doing the same. Whilst listening to both releases is not essential for understanding, they work so well together as an overall package. I will be reviewing I Hate Mondays separately, so definitely check out that review if you haven't already, because it is another incredibly strong box set from that series. It features a hilarious opener which excellently portrays the 3 main protagonists of Torchwood 1 being Yvonne, Ianto and Tommy. Then we have a rather fun second story digging deep into Canary Wharf's organisational structure, and the box set caps off with an incredibly intense emotional character piece which kind of deals indirectly with the events of this story. So Disco sees Ianto travel home to Wales for his father's funeral and wake. He's got a week off work working at Torchwood 1, and he has time to reflect and revisit the past. It's a big moment for Ianto's character, as up until this point his father has been this rather mysterious figure that has been referenced to here and there, but we know the relationship that he had with Ianto's family wasn't the best, leading to him leaving when Ianto was only a kid. Whilst we don't hear the funeral within this episode, this story does focus around the wake. The bereaved family have left, but Ianto is still lurking about with a drink, which he doesn't intend on drinking. It is here from behind the bar that he meets Dizzy as well as Ginge, one of the locals, and it soon becomes clear that they both knew, aside to Ianto's father, that Ianto and the rest of his family were completely unaware of. Ianto's father has been very much cast in a bad light as this bad person, however Ginge and Dizzy know a different side to him, someone who is happy to help others, the centre of the dance floor, and very much a key part of the local community, or at least certainly the local drinking community. It's a character piece which digs deep into the past, memories, and the way that people interpret the past. It's rather difficult for me to talk about this story without giving some of the plot away, so take that as a little bit of a warning. As Ianto travels back in time to 1987 and meets his dad for himself, creating an alias along the way. The way that he travels back in time is a little bit haphazard, but it works. I think especially if you come from the Doctor Who perspective of storytelling with Big Finish, this aspect of the plot may leave you wanting a little bit more answers, but not in a good way. I don't think that Ianto acquiring a time travel device will cut it for some people. Maybe Torchwood even having this capability in the first place will be seen as a little bit too much at this point in time, but I don't really care, because this story isn't really about that. It is used as a narrative device, and I'm absolutely all here for it. This story has no aliens, no big villainous threat. It's a complex, human-focused narrative which uses sci-fi to take it to the next level, and do something that we've all thought about from time to time. What if you could travel back into your own personal timeline and perhaps get answers or simply just nostalgia? And I don't think the concept of this story will be for everyone, as I say, especially if you've came from a Doctor Who background, because this episode does leave quite a number of unknowns and the whole time travel stuff isn't really a big part of the plot. As I say, it's more about the characters that we meet along the way. So by doing this, the listener is treated to a very emotional, heartfelt, difficult character journey. Rhys ap Trefor is brilliant as Ianto's father. He's a problematic, imperfect figure, happy to help others, but also very carefree. I don't think that he quite understands that actions have consequences, and bad choices, time and time again, tend to dig an even deeper hole. I certainly got the impression throughout this episode that he is living a life where he feels trapped, with a wife called Glenda, of which he avoids by going to the pub, leaving behind also the kids. And this has a massive stress, of course, on this family's home life, as Ianto knows fine well. By having Ianto himself involved within this setting, I think he bites off way more than he can chew, treading on a territory he really shouldn't. Gareth David Lloyd presents a really interesting, different side to Ianto's personality. He's rather calculated, lost, thinking for himself, and playing a game of which he doesn't quite know the rules to. Especially when you consider as well that Ianto will be in his early 20s when this episode is set, and Torchwood 1 has explored this less refined, often lost and useless side to the character, unlike the more polished version of Ianto that we would get later on that is better at handling things. But applying this rather flawed character to his childhood trauma creates this weirdly manipulative performance whilst he searches for answers. I think that Gareth does a great job of showing this character being completely out of his depth, but also trying to pull the strings and save things, when in reality he's just basically putting a plaster on a massive war wound. The thing which I really taken from this story is the interconnect and the effect people have on your own existence. Dizzy was still working in the local pub during the 80s, and Ginge is this angry, masculine figure who always seems ready for a fight. In a way, they rely upon each other within this drinking community, within the local boozer, to pass the days by. Ianto's father is himself part of that community, but always seems to start things that he can't finish, which I find really sad. He has all of these ideas, all of these things that he wants to do, particularly helping those around him. Or one of his major flaws, taking other people's word as gospel because his friend knows a guy who holds all of the answers to everything, and ultimately he is then the only person who suffers the consequences of heeding that advice. And then of course his wife and kids indirectly too, which at that point within time Ianto was completely unaware of, but now he somewhat is. Perhaps as a listener it also made me think about those times where you think, oh, if only if I could go back in time and change X. Who knows, you may leave that situation in an even worse situation, and sometimes searching for answers may not always be the best thing, and the unknown is maybe best left unknown. And I think when you experience this story, if you do start thinking about these ideas after having listened to it, I think that the story has done its job. It's a thought-provoking piece, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It's a really sad but effective journey we embark upon as listeners, and in reality I couldn't think of anyone better to write that story than Gareth David Lloyd himself, who clearly demonstrates depth and understanding in his character's motivations, vulnerabilities, and flaws at different points throughout his life. But not only that, these support characters that he has within the episode, he also understands the flaws and motivations of those people too. He's used people that he knows or has knew within real life and have brought them into this story, and that in turn creates this authentic community that is living on the outskirts perhaps of real life and a busy existence. And the best thing is too, it's not like one of those prequels that was clearly produced and rammed into the timeline after the main event, which I always find those really frustrating. This is one of those stories that fits so neatly into the web of Ianto's character and reveals just enough about his father's life, which doesn't feel like sharing too much. It's a unique story which achieves exactly what it sets out to do, with Torchwood 1 I Hate Mondays also soaking up very subtly some of the aftermath personal reflections from this release. I think had I came out of this story wanting to hear more about Ianto and his father and him going back in time and visiting him again, I would probably be interpreting the story in an incorrect way, or at least that is my interpretation. I think that we've had this episode now, we've dealt with some of these character moments, and I think that that is just enough, and it is completely fine. It is a brilliant overall package, but also a very intense journey as well. And that is that. That has been the Ianto-olgy, a really rewarding set of stories that digs into multiple aspects of Ianto Jones' life as a Torchwood character. It's had its ups and downs, it's been emotional, it's been funny, particularly Tube Strike with Tommy of course, but I think most importantly these have been 3 individual stories I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to, and I would definitely say if you're a fan of Ianto, then yes, absolutely buy these stories, and if you're someone who tends to buy the Torchwood audio stories occasionally, then yes, maybe treat yourself to one of these, because all 3 of them are very strong stories which have different ideas. And if that's not enough for Ianto, of course there's also Torchwood 1 I Hate Mondays too, as well as the rest of that series that you can go out and enjoy to get a Ianto from around a similar time period to when this story is set. So thank you very much for watching this review, I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on those productions for regular audio drama reviews from Big Finish. Have a nice day, I shall see you all next time.